And welcome back to the Thought Leader Recruiter. I'm Sam Bylett, and today's episode is a bit special. We have two guests in the virtual studio: Thomas Haun, President of Turner Staffing Group, and Sean Marion, Director of Recruitment. Thomas and Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you both here. So, yeah, Thomas, let's start at the beginning. How did Turner Staffing get started, and why was spinning out from Turner Mining Group the right move?
Yeah, so I love that you referenced Turner Mining Group with the question. So Turner Staffing Group is an offshoot of Turner Mining Group. Keaton Turner founded Turner Mining Group about 8 years ago now. I joined pretty early stages, about a year in. And really, Turner Mining Group's whole goal was to be a professional field services company for the mining industry. We kind of saw it as a gap. It's more common in spaces like oil and gas. And so we felt like in the US, that was something that was needed from a domestic mining perspective. Keaton's kind of infamous or famous for saying a couple things, but one of them is we're not a mining company. We're a people company that just happens to do mining. And that kind of phrase, I think, underlines just a ton of focus that we put in and around people. We got really good at that, and so much so that we started to have clients of Turner Mining Group ask for staffing solutions from the firm. Well, when the market asks, you give, right? So we, from that, spun out Turner Staffing Group in 22, and we've been at it almost 3 years now. But yeah, it's a great story. We just got really focused on the people side of the business and got some nice results from that.
Yeah, and again, the people is the most important thing, right? So that's
Absolutely.
a good thing to focus on. And Sean, from like the recruiter's chair, what's exciting you the most about the business right now? Is anything that surprised you in the last quarter?
Yeah, I would say what's most exciting is just the continual growth that we're going through. Thomas and I have talked very recently about how we're running into, I wouldn't necessarily call them growing pains, but just adjustments that we're needing to make that I really didn't expect to be making at this point in the game. I expected it to be another couple of years out. So it's really exciting. Last quarter, yeah, I would say the shift that we've seen from more of the headhunting direct placement type asks that we've been getting, and a massive shift over to more of the staffing contract to hire. Let Turner Staffing Group be your front door of hiring and allow us to have these people go through a probationary period before coming on board with you 100%. And it's a great shift to see, and it creates more meaningful partnerships for us.
Yeah, sure. Sounds like it's been a busy start to the year then, which is obviously good. Thomas, could you kind of paint the picture for us? Who are your typical clients, and what kind of projects do you staff?
Yeah. So, and again, this is kind of the reference back to the Turner mining side of things, but our kind of, I'll say, bread and butter is the domestic mining industry in the United States. We always like to talk about kind of where we have pockets of talent. And really, we have folks spread from interior Alaska. There's significant gold extraction and exploration happening there, all the way down to South Florida, where there's a ton of construction material need just for the amount of building that's happening in Florida. And so we have folks really spread corner to corner across the US. But again, the primary focus is mining, whether that is metals or specialty minerals or rare earths is kind of a current conversation, or even just construction materials, like literally pulling rock out of the ground so that you can build buildings. Really, that's kind of been our focus. We do have some things that kind of circle right around that. So a lot of times you'll have a firm that might be serving the mining industry, but also moves earth for highway projects, heavy civil style needs, and we help those as well. And then you also end up with firms that are service providers into the mining industry. So heavy equipment, electricians, utility style things. So again, kind of like mining is the center, but really there's like a lot of industries that end up serving mining that we also support.
I find the mining just fascinating, really. I can't even imagine what it is like to do the mining. I suppose it's probably evolved over the years.
Yeah, it's mining, when we think about the mining industry, right? Domestic US mining production and also in other kind of developed Western markets, it's the safest it's ever been. It's the cleanest it's ever been. It's also, in my opinion, some of the most technologically interesting it's ever been. It's cool. I mean, I have a 10-year-old son, right? And so he loves it because he gets to look at all this big equipment and it's like, big Tonka trucks, right? So I also think, the boy in you has a lot of fun when you get to get on a mine site.
Yeah, yeah. I just picture like mining, like you see the kind of the old guys covered in dirt and crawling through.
Yeah, it's not that anymore.
That's what I'm
That's for sure.
picturing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
if anybody's that's watching this is on Instagram, you can either follow Turner Mining Group or Turner Staffing Group, and you'll see what actual mining is. It's not. There's no more pickaxes. There's no more crawling through holes. Like this is some of the largest equipment in the world, some of the most clean equipment in the world, some of the safest equipment in the world, moving mountains of earth and then putting it back, right? So that's the other fun thing that we get exposed to as well in the business is there's a huge reclamation push, both here domestically in the US, but again in Western nations, where you'll take an old mine site and they'll turn it into housing development. They'll turn it into a lake. They'll turn it into a golf course, right? Back into farm fields. Like the use after it is a mine is a really interesting thing. And it really shows kind of like the full life cycle of utilizing resources in an appropriate way.
yeah, the reinstatement process. Yes, that's quite
Exactly.
fascinating. It's fascinating as well. Yeah, trends or challenges are you seeing across the client base?
I would say, yeah, I would say biggest trends that we're seeing right now is with the aging workforce that is in our industry, a lot of focus on utilizing folks like us to help kind of get that next generation into the door. And it's not the easiest thing to do for, especially for companies that don't have the brand that we have built to attract that talent. Yeah, there's a huge focus there because we're looking at probably within the next 3 to 5 years a big phase out of some of the more experienced folks in the industry. And so yeah, that's probably the biggest trend that we're facing right now with our different clients.
Yeah, yeah. That was actually my next question. How are you addressing the aging workforce? It's a big.
It is. It is. I think Keaton, Thomas, the Turner team as a whole have done an amazing job. And it's really what caught my attention to join the team when I did was just the online presence, the marketing behind the name and giving giving the industry a new look. It's revamped. It's not the legacy type of look like we were just talking of pickaxes and covered in coal dust and all those things. It shows just how fun and just how new some of the pieces of equipment are and gaining more interest in folks that maybe don't want to go the kind of the new normal of following through a 4-year bachelor's degree, going and taking master's degree and get into the trades and get into the mining industry, and just showing that there's a lot of opportunity for growth, especially with the phase out that we're looking at. There's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's especially nowadays. It's so difficult to get the youngsters coming through to take on a job, like even in construction, isn't it? Because there's just so many opportunities now for young people to earn money just sitting at home on their laptop. So and you've got a tough job in your hands. I do believe, but you're obviously doing something right there.
Yeah, I think, and Sean, I think hit the nail on the head, right? You need to create something that's attractive, right? Something that's compelling, something that feels impactful. If we were to go about recruiting in a very traditional way, I think we'd get very traditional results, right? And that's why you hear other firms talk about, hey, we're struggling with attracting the next generation. We've really focused on being relevant where people's attention is. And Sean said this, but like digital is where young people spend all their time, right? I think the statistics in the US last year, 25 to 34-year-olds, which is a key demo for us, spent 4.6 hours per day looking at their phone screen. That's insane.
Yeah,
If you sum that up, it's like 200 million hours a day of awareness and attention going towards phone screen. So when we even make videos now that market our firm, they're all portrait, right? So that you can see them like directly on your phone. They're not a wide screen style format. because most people are consuming content via their phone. And so it's just being relevant to that group, showing where an entry point is, but also where a career could take you is really important. In the U.S., we're also seeing a trend back away from university. So my generation and Sean's generation, the millennials, like we got saddled with a lot of student, and I think as you're looking at generations behind us, they might not want that, right? It's like, hey, the plumber in my neighborhood is killing it, right? Like literally killing it. No student debt, great job, nice truck, like all the toys, like great life. And so I think people are kind of becoming a little more aware that, maybe what millennials were sold, which, my parents were like, hey, work with your head, not with your hands. It's like, maybe that's not the best thing. So yeah, it's cool. It's nice to have a firm that actually is focused truly on the next generation and trying things a little bit different.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know in the UK here, I was in the construction industry for many, many years, and the churn of like just young people coming through was insane. Like there'd be like a new starter every couple of weeks. They couldn't handle it. They just couldn't get up in the mornings. Didn't like the hard work, the late nights sometimes, and it was like every couple of weeks. So yeah, it's difficult. It is, but you know, it's something that we need to address, especially over here as well.
Oh, yeah. And I think there are, and Sean can probably give some statistics on kind of like our applicant base, but like I do think there are a pocket of people that still want to play with those Tonka toys, right? I think it would be harder if we were trying to get people to, literally use a pickaxe, right? I do think that would be really challenging. But I do think folks that are more mechanically inclined, folks that might actually want to be outside on a day-to-day basis, not stuck in an office like Sean and I are. Like I do think there are ways to really get to that demographic that are interested and really do see the impact and really frankly the joy that a career like this could bring.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just want to switch to like actual candidates now. So when someone's struggling, say, to land interviews, what's the first thing they should fix?
Yeah, I would say it comes to the resume. That's your entry into an interview is applying, sending in the resume. And while we never suggest somebody lies on a resume, there are different ways that you can adjust the wording in a resume and using the job description of the position you're applying for. Look for those buzz terms and where applicable, enter that in to the resume because how long I've been in the recruiting industry, I know that a lot of recruiters unfortunately get tunnel vision when they're looking through applicants, and all they're looking for are those main buzz terms that they're getting from their hiring managers. And so if they don't see them right off the bat, they just dismiss it. And so it's the unfortunate truth and reality of a lot of these places to apply. But yeah, just adding in buzz terms where you can is going to make a huge difference.
I suppose with AI now and CVs, it's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Um, Sometimes you don't really know if what they got down on paper is what they actually do, because AI can mimic that very well. Yeah, it's a tricky one. That, and I suppose I mean maybe not so much in your industry, construction industry, but like LinkedIn is also a massive, I think, favor to have with your CV. A good LinkedIn profile is key nowadays, especially I suppose not in the kind of blue collar sector, but certainly in the white collar.
Yeah, and actually we are seeing much more interest in LinkedIn from a blue collar demo, right? I do think similar, and again, this is part of where I think we're seeing the change live. People who go and join their local plumbing company, we can stick with the kind of example. They may want to do that for a couple years, and then they may want to go and do something else for a couple years. And so having a LinkedIn presence allows them to chart a career and think about a career in a different way. You know, 20, 50 years ago, you would have someone who went and joined the local plumber and they were a plumber the rest of their life, right? And so I think that's the other shift is like with the exposure to different career paths, you can switch companies, you can switch industries. A lot of these skill sets are very transferable. So, and how that manifests itself for us, Reid Hoffman's the founder of LinkedIn. He actually wrote a book probably it might even be a decade ago now, called The Alliance. Great book. Kind of the modern way of thinking about a career, both from an employee perspective, but also from an employer perspective. And it kind of uses the military as a great example where you design tours of duty. It's like, hey, you're going to be here for the next 2 years. Here are the skills you're going to learn. Here's how you're going to grow. Here's how you're going to contribute to the business. And then 2 years from now, you know, maybe you want to stay, maybe you don't, but you actually start to think in that way. I think it'd be really powerful. The reality is in the US, again, back to that 25 to 34 demo, they're only staying with their current employer for about 2.5 years. And then they're changing. Literally, not just changing jobs, changing companies. And so thinking in a tour of duty construct is probably a powerful way to do this anyway. And I think it's actually what the talent is demanding, which is, hey, look, I may come be a plumber for the next 2.5 years, and I'm happy to sign up for that. I'm not necessarily signing up for the rest of my working career, right? The next 40. So I think those trends are things that we need as firms to really kind of put our arms around and actually embrace. Similar again to how universities might do it, right? They don't expect to have students for forever, right? They keep them for 3, 4 years, and then they're alums, and then they're alumni, and then they interact with and engage with that alumni base, and frankly, create more value from. Why aren't companies thinking that way, right? And so it's just, I know the military does, right? So it's like, again, I just think there are great examples out there where whether it's blue collar, white collar, like these are the trends that are happening in the workforce. And you really need to run to what you're seeing in the market, not run away from what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, sure. And what was that book called again? Always like a good.
It's called The Alliance. It's written by Reid Hoffman. Reid's obviously, super genius level, part of the PayPal mafia, started LinkedIn. Like he's just legit. But it's a really interesting way. And again, he saw this a decade ago in Silicon Valley. So my point is like, if firms like that are realizing this, why aren't other firms realizing this?
Yeah, for sure. And for folks hiring, what mistakes do you see employers making over and over again?
Haun, you go after this.
Yeah, this is something I talk about every day. Maybe too much, but yeah, I would say probably the biggest mistake that companies are making is making assumptions for candidates. And what I'm talking about there is oftentimes I will have a candidate I'm working with present them to a hiring manager. They'll look at their resume and say no for X, Y, and Z reasons. And they're all assumptions about the person, not about their experience, about the person and what they want. We can't tell people what no, we can't tell people what they want. They know what they want. We don't. And that's one example, but just making assumptions by looking at a resume and not actually getting to know and connect with the individual themselves to hear them out, understand their story, what they're looking for. It's just yeah, it's a huge mistake that's being made way too often, and it's something I'm constantly trying to consult our clients about. Of just talk to them, hear them out. I was able to connect with them, get a good understanding, and that's why we're here at this part of the process. Is I feel based on what they're looking for, telling me more about their background, they should be a very good fit for what you need. Yeah, you just got to talk to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that, Haun. Everybody wants fit, right? Like that's like the corporate buzz term. Oh, we got to find the right fit, and then they don't even evaluate for fit. It's like what? It's just wild.
Yeah, it's something I've kind of coined this phrase of there's no such thing as being overqualified. So many times, hiring managers will say, well, this person has 20 years of relative experience. We're only looking for 5 to 10. There's no way they're going to be happy in this role. How do you know that? How do you know that without talking to the person? No, you're making that assumption.
Yeah. And I suppose cultural fit now is so important as well as having the skill set, isn't it? That's some people prefer a more culturally fit person than a highly skilled person.
Oh, yeah. And it's part of why the term like fit came into kind of like modern parlance, right? Is like, hey, we're looking for more than just a skill set. we're looking for someone who might be values aligned. I would recommend values aligned, someone who has, a passion for what the firm does, someone who wants to make an impact even just beyond kind of the 9 to 5 of their gig. Those are all things that aren't, check the box skill set items. So it's just crazy when you talk to a firm and they're like, oh, well, I'm assuming they don't fit. It's like, well, no, you should be testing whether they fit or not. So yeah, and look, our recruiting team is a bunch of rock stars, right? They really get to know their people. And that's actually the difference. Like really getting to know someone, you can start to advise them, hey, I don't think this one's as good for you. Here's why. And like really have a real conversation with the talent rather than saying, I'm not even going to talk with them. I'm just going to assume it's a bad fit or a good fit. Sometimes it's the reverse, right? They assume they're a good fit. And we're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Here's some, yellow flag. Might not be red flags, but like yellow flags that we want to raise to have, here's what we're hearing from the talent. And it's like, again, I just think making assumptions is just a bad way to be trying to connect with someone and trying to assess fit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so let's move on to like branding now. I know this is something you're quite passionate about. And what does strong employer branding look like in the field forced world where Instagram filters don't really help?
Yeah, no, there's no Instagram filters on a mine site. That's a great point. I think there's a couple things on the employer side that's important. One, it's actually highlighting your people. We've talked about how mining can be cool and sexy, right? Like the equipment's big and shiny and like doing some amazing stuff. Well, the equipment is operated by a human. Actually showing the human and actually, letting them tell their story, I think is critical. It's giving outside talent a peek behind the curtain, right? Into what their life is, not just what the company does as far as like a scope of work is. So I think that's first and foremost. You actually got to show people and what they're doing. I think the second one is you need to tell what it is that you care about as an employer. Like, what are your values if you have a set of core values? What are the things that you guys make decisions based off of, right? We have 4 at Turner, a heart for people, an eye for safety, a mind for innovation, and an attitude for excellence. We look at those 4 things when we're making a decision, like we look at those 4 things as a filter. Like, is this us living a heart for people? Is this us having an eye for safety? And if we didn't live that and didn't express that, I think we would be hiding from talent what we are interested in and how we kind of almost like what we care about and what we don't in some sense. So those 2 I think are like the most. You got to show your people and you got to like say what you care about. Beyond that, I think the more detail you can provide, the better, right? Rather than everything being like, I talk a lot on Instagram, you kind of talked about a filter. I talk about hype videos. So like we do plenty of hype videos. I love it. But we also do videos where like you're actually sitting with someone and talking to them. And you're actually like getting to a level of detail that maybe isn't at first apparent. So, I would skew towards more detail pretty much always. I just think it's more authentic. I think it's less filtery, right? So yeah, I think highlighting your people, then highlighting what you care about, and then if you can do that, the more detail you can provide, probably the better.
Yeah, I love them core values. Yeah, really, really amazing that is. Skill sets, they keep morphing, they keep growing. Are companies adapting quickly enough or are they lagging behind?
I would say they're lagging behind for the most part, especially in our industry. It's no secret that it's hard to come by, especially with the younger generation right now. Folks that are very skilled in certain areas of the business, whether it's a mechanic, electrician, you name it. And there's a lot of hiring companies that feel that they can still follow the old process of interviewing and onboarding folks and having 3 or 4 interview steps and then waiting another week beyond that, get an offer out, and XYZ company down the road, they have more for their process. They've adjusted to the industry and the talent pool, and they don't need to take that many steps. Maybe 1, two at the most conversations, and they're getting this person on board because they know how much of a commodity this person is, and, in our current state with the industries. Yeah, I think that that's a big thing that a lot of clients of well, a lot of clients of ours are starting to make adjustments, but just I would say companies in general are lagging in that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially in that industry, there's always a new training, isn't there, or a new skill set that's, I mean, when I was in construction, there was something new every month that we had to do, whether it was health and safety or whether it was a new ticket you had to learn for a new tool. It's ever evolving, isn't it? So, yeah, hard to keep up with for sure. Yeah, so Turner staffing has grown really fast. What's been your kind of biggest scaling challenge to date?
That's a great question. I think I already made reference to this, from a recruiting perspective, we have a ton of rock stars. So we have a lot of horsepower and throughput in the recruiting process. We also have a great talent pool. Before, we had over 26,000 domestic applicants to join Turner. So that's a wild number, right? Just to give everybody an order of magnitude, we're like talking like 500-ish people, maybe 600-ish people at Turner. So having 26,000 people applying a year is like nuts. So it's really not even on the talent pool side either. Where I actually see the biggest hurdle is what Sean just articulated around process bottlenecks. Oftentimes, we know that the talent needs to move at a pace going forward, and yet the client may say, I can't keep up with that pace. That kind of piece there probably is the thing that slows us down the most from like a throughput perspective. If you kind of want to think of scaling as a throughput challenge, it's not really talent, it's not really recruiting capacity. It's really like the partnership and really all the bottlenecks that are built into the partnership with that client.
Yeah, interesting. And what's your vision for Turner staffing over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's going to get more and more tech enabled, right? So I think you're going to have firms that are moving towards that. Even simple things like how we do payroll, right? Like, I know this is going to be like super basic, but like doing that in a fully digital way where we're not passing timesheets back and forth between some client approver versus our own internal manager versus the employee themselves. Like getting more tech enabled and more efficient in everything we do, I think is just absolutely, it's already happening and will continue to happen. So from a vision perspective, like thinking about that and thinking where we can really kind of make things more seamless, I think is an important one. The other thing from a vision perspective I have is we always talk about really being a bridge to this community of talent. I think there's more we can do there, whether that is just more value we're providing into that community of talent, not just a job, right? Kind of as a way to think about it. How are we educating them? How are we upskilling them? How are we preparing them for their next steps? And those would be non-employees, right? So these are people who are outside of Turner. But I do think there's more we can be pouring into that community with that I would love for us to get to. So again, now we got to work with some client partners to make that happen. But I do think there are similar visions for that.
Yeah, sure. Well, we can't avoid the big acronym anymore. How do you see AI changing recruitment, and are you using it yet?
I'll let Sean take that one.
Yeah. So we have used some AI tools in recruiting, more so for our sourcing efforts. So it's definitely something that's already being implemented, and it's going to become more and more common across the board. So yes, we have used it. We're still just exploring how we can best use it for our team and how the industry we're in and the different platforms that are out there. But yes, we know that it is something that is going to be used across the industry, across all recruiting as a whole. And so we are trying to get ahead of that before it's too late. But yeah, we've been using it and just learning as we go. And I see that being a big part of our activities on the recruiting team within the next year or less.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting one, isn't it? AI in recruitment. I always kind of find it quite fascinating how it's going to kind of pan out and how far it's going to go. I've been seeing a lot of advanced things recently, and it's quite mind blowing what's going to happen within the next year or two, I think.
I always joke, and you mentioned LinkedIn earlier. Whenever you read someone's LinkedIn post, it's like, did they write that or did ChatGPT write it? They could even do the research and cite it and provide all of that for you.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And what would you say is the most kind of underrated trade skill in 2025?
Underrated trade skill. Can I say all of them? No, just kidding. Yeah, I honestly think the most underrated trade skill is the groundsman, the construction laborer type position. It's so critical to the operations of a mining site, construction site to have just very reliable folks in those roles. Without those folks, you can't have a seamless transition of the production process on site. And I think it's often overlooked, and those folks are taken for granted. They are maybe even more crucial than some of the other trades on the site.
Do you feel you're kind of undervalued and kind of people look down at you a little bit? But the job you do is crucial. Without you guys and without people that do that work, nothing gets done.
Support functions are an interesting thing, right? Support roles, like, they can make or break an operation. It's not always about kind of the person slinging the dirt. Like, how are they set up for success? It can be really important.
Yeah, sure. Well, Thomas and Sean, thanks today. It's been really, really interesting. How can our audience get to know a bit more about yourselves and Turner Staffing?
Yeah, Sean, I'm thinking probably LinkedIn is best.
LinkedIn.
Sam, you referenced it before, but it is where kind of like business goes to meet, right? So whether that's on an individual level or on a corporate level, finding Turner Mining, Turner Staffing on LinkedIn, finding Sean, myself. We also do some fun stuff on Instagram. So if you're into that kind of thing, head on over there. But yeah, those are probably the easiest ways.
Thanks very much for you both today. It's been a really interesting conversation. And yeah, catch you next time.
Absolutely.